Radio, Philly Pressbox, and Jim, let's go.
It's Wednesday, January 12th, 2021. Welcome to the Philly Pressbox Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA, and Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA. I'm Bill Furman. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner, Jim Chesko. Hey, Chet, we plan to talk a lot of Flyers hockey with the season opening up tomorrow night, but the Eagles have stolen the headlines with the firing of Doug Pederson yesterday. We will talk about all that, as well as the Sixers being caught in COVID world, and college football's crowned a national champion, and it's not a surprise in this crazy 2020 season.
Yeah, and when we talked with Ray Didinger last week, we all assumed that we'd have at least one more season of Doug Pederson, trying to right the ship, but I guess Jeffrey Lurie had other ideas. And the word I heard over and over yesterday and today on Philly Sports Talk Radio, Bill, dysfunctional in terms of the Eagles, and boy, I can't disagree. And there's a whole lot to discuss on that situation, which we will get to.
Yeah, and the Jeffrey Lurie presser was a piece of work, I guess. That's the only thing I can come up with for now. But yeah, we've got a couple great guests tonight, and former Flyers defenseman and broadcaster Chris Therien, and Edge of Philly Sports Al Zaffiri will be joining us a little bit later. But yet, most people know Chris, aka Bundy, from his time with the Flyers, but he's also an Eagles season ticket holder. So I'm real interested to get his take on the Peterson firing and follow up on that Jeff Lurie presser.
Well, let's not keep him waiting. Let's bring him on. Here we go. Bundy, Chris Therien, welcome to the show, man.
Great to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely.
All right, Bill, let me just get right to it with the football thing, because as you said, he is a football fan. We're going to talk lots of hockey, but the Eagles, Chris, what is your take on the firing of Doug Pederson? You approve of that decision or not?
I do. It's a mess, guys. Right? Like I said, I've been a season ticket holder since I think 2001. So I go down with my kids every week. I'm very tied. I'm very interested in football. I love the Eagles. I love what happened 3 years ago with the Super Bowl. It was great. I just feel though that Doug, I watched this year, and I know it's been a really odd year, guys, in terms of sports in general, with football, the way it's been, college, COVID, basketball, bubbles, everything. I just felt that whatever went on this year, if he was taking orders from Howie and from Lurie up top, then you've already sealed your own fate as a coach. You cannot come into any pro sport and think that you're going to do something that someone else tells you and it's going to work. It didn't. And I alluded on Twitter the other day that last fourth quarter kind of sealed it. I got razzed by a couple fans, but the reason I said that was the players afterwards complained that they said it was an issue, that they tanked the fourth quarter. But you cannot, if you're a coach, and I go to my old teammate, old great buddy of mine, Craig Berube, you get hired to get fired. And you have to be accountable to yourself and your teammates, or the guys below you, the players for you. You cannot be accountable to the management, what they want. You're the coach. You have to pull the strings for the coach. And the manager has to be able to, the GM has to be the guy that's responsible for bringing the personnel in. That's on him. There's been a mix-up and a bad job all around by the Eagles, quite frankly.
Yeah, and Chris, a couple of weeks ago, we had Dave Spadaro on with us, and I tried to pin Dave down a little bit, and he was great. He was very open and frank at the time. But I went back to the January 8th and January 9th, when January 8th of last year is when Doug Pederson said he was keeping his assistants, and on January 9th, he fired him. To me, that was the unraveling. That was the start of what we saw end yesterday with Doug Pederson.
It's strange times, and I mean that's a business that is humongous. The NFL is its own entity. It's a multi-billion-dollar entity in its own right. So changes happen in football probably a lot more often than they do in other sports, simply because the budget appears to be unlimited. There's not many leagues that can go with a 10 or 15% capacity through the year, playing in their own buildings with no fan, and still be able to maintain fairly player compensation. So the NFL is a juggernaut, and there's a lot of turnover when you start dealing with big money that they've had, and certainly internal problems. I will say one thing, and I don't know what people think of it, but I really felt, guys, even going back to that Super Bowl, I know I may not be too popular for saying this, but I told people they need to get rid of Wentz right after the Super Bowl was won. That is a heavy, heavy price for a young guy. to come back and try to reclaim that spot after a backup essentially just carried your team to the Super Bowl. It was a rally around Nick Foles postseason, and the Eagles got it done in about as grandiose fashion as you can. That's tough for a quarterback coming in, that even though he had a great year, and up to that point, there was nothing to suggest that he would be on a downward spiral. But I think a little bit of it is a mental part of dealing with the post-Super Bowl that he didn't win. And I think that that's a lot of pressure that falls on a young guy like that.
Well, we appreciate your football expertise, but we're here to talk hockey with you, Chris. So let's get to it. It's going to be a unique 56-game NHL season. The Flyers playing all of their games against 7 Eastern teams, 8 games against each. So minimal travel, that's the good thing, but not a lot of days off. This is going to be a very interesting season, something unprecedented.
You know, it's really odd. Somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, and of course, I won't be covering the Flyers, at least on that official basis this year. So this will be about the gist of it. So I often wondered sometimes if they realize that they may have been paying me to actually not tell the truth sometime, and they may find out. But no, I really think that when you look at the season, someone said, as I said, someone was saying to me a couple weeks ago that, hey, this is going to be great. You're playing 7 or 8 teams, over 56 games. And I said, you guys got to remember, this is not the 1984 Patrick division. It's not. It actually probably has more of a tendency to become enamored with someone else on the other team, or where you become more familiar with them. There was a time in this league, I think, where there would have been complete animosity the entire year. Hockey's always best played chaotic. That's the way I've always felt it. It's a different sport now in a lot of ways. And so in terms of that intensity, I'm expecting a lot of intensity. But in terms of what I think the fans love to see back in the 80s and 90s, you're not going to see, I don't think you're going to see those rivalries develop any more than what we've seen in the last couple of years. I just don't see it happening. I don't think there's enough physicality in the sport to welcome any more physicality.
Well, Chris, obviously the players have never gone through anything like we're going through now. We saw it in football with the massive injuries that took place. These guys, your hockey guys, 10 days, show up on the 3rd. We're going to play for real on the 13th. I don't guess they had full access to rinks to get in shape and skating shape and all that because everybody was on lockdown. What do you make of that? And boy, I sure hate to see a season ruined by injuries. 56 games isn't long.
Well, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be a multitude of injuries. So it's next man up. That's why they expanded the rosters this year, which they really have to do. I do a podcast actually just for with Jim McCrossan every Wednesday. Just a medical thing. We just go about different scenarios that young athletes have had. We've done it for the last 10 weeks, and really one of them, and I can sense it in Jim McCrossan's voice when I'm talking to him, is he's concerned. I mean, he's concerned. It's 10 days. You jump right into it, and again, you look at college football or the beginning of the NFL, the amount of injuries that have taken place because of no training camp. Hockey's a quick twitch type of sport, right? You're moving left, you're right, you're backwards, you're all over the place. Groin pulls happen, those knee tweaks can happen. So again, and part of the problem is that it's a 56-game schedule where you got to be all out all the time. There's just, you can't really, it's amazing. I've played those shortened schedules before. It's very, very difficult to be able to maneuver your way through them. And if you go on a losing streak of lose 7 out of 8 or 8 out of 9, you're done. The season's over. So, I mean, we saw last year how tight it was at the end. It'll be even tighter this year. You're going to see teams now within 3 or 4 points heading down the final stretch, the last 5 games of the year. That's great in terms of getting more of that parity inside the league. But it's going to have to be a very, very focused start by the Flyers, and they're going to have to stay as healthy as they possibly can.
Well, they put out their roster today, 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, 7 taxi squatters or 6 taxi squatters. It looks to me like a pretty deep team. I mean, Nolan Patrick is back, which is great to see. Oscar Lindblom coming back from cancer, which is terrific, of course. What a great story. Am I right that this is a deep squad?
I do. I mean, I think now that any team that has revamped their fourth line, whether it becomes an energy fourth line, to me, the most important line in all of hockey is the third line, simply because it's left unexposed to the challenges of being checked by the opposition. If you have a great third line, you can have a really good hockey team because it's not the one that's matched up in the top 2 against the other team's top 2 pairs and so on. So again, for that reason, guys coming back like Nolan Patrick, hopefully guys expanding on the years they had last year with Obey Kubel, the young defenseman taking a step forward. There are some other things that, we'll see how they shape up through the year. Matt Niskanen leaves the team. Again, I like Provorov a lot. I'm not sure that he's a number one defenseman yet. Those are questions that are going to have to be left out in the open. There's, Niskanen really solidified that pair last year, and then Ivan had an excellent second half. So, again, I want to see how he does on his own now as the front man of a pair. And again, as I said, development of young defensemen, guys, is just so critical for any hockey team. But the Flyers do have Carter Hart, which is always a good sign, a good thing to have is a great backstopper. And certainly the first couple of years of his career has been nothing shy of excellent.
Hey, Chris, of the forwards, I guess I'm not really surprised, but I'm wondering what kind of impact Morgan Frost is going to have. If he's going to get a lot of playing time, I'm looking for a guy, and in the juniors, I guess he was that guy that could score a lot of goals, and this team needs a lot of goals.
Yeah, he's got a ton of skill already. He's a late first-round pick, a really good kid, a tremendous junior player. He is a guy that just needs to grow up in the league. There's a spot for a kid like Morgan Frost to play now in the NHL. I'm not so sure that would have been the case 25 years ago, but with the rosters changing and again, looking for skill more down on your depth lines, you'll see kids with high skill level playing in those spots now. So it looks like he may have been marked as the extra in practice the last couple of days. Makes sense if he does not start the season, immediately. But there will be a spot for him somewhere this year. Again, his development will be important to see in terms of what this team's able to do with their young guys. It'll be a big evaluation year for a lot of the young guys to have a look to see where they've come off that playoff last year and where they are in the regular season.
You mentioned Carter Hart a moment or two ago, and we're all excited to see his continued development. He's still just 22, which is amazing. What do you expect from him now in his third season, and how are he and Brian Elliott going to split the time?
Yeah, you know what? I think that Carter is one of these kids that's made some unbelievably great. He makes some phenomenal stops, and I think not unlike any other goalie, where you have other goalies that are young. They have their moments where some softies get by them. If you go back to that 7-game series last year against the Islanders. I was golfing with Craig Berube this summer, and right after it all had ended, and I came back, and he said, "Well, Carter Hart's." A few of the old Flyers were golfing. We're talking shop, and someone said, Carter Hart. And someone said, well, he gave up 3 goals in every single game in that series, a minimum of 3 goals in the 7 games. And I remember Chief said, yeah, it's not good enough. You can't win a series when you allow 3 goals against in every single game in a series. And you know what? Again, he's made brilliant stops, and when he's hot, he's hot. He seems to fall into a little bit of a funk when things don't go his way early, but I think Philadelphia, guys, is in shape for a dozen years with some really, really solid goaltending. I only think he's going to get better. He's a great kid. He takes things in stride. I've seen him down there stretching, getting ready for games when I was doing it. And he's a kid, I can tell you one thing, you're not going to get cheated by him. The fans won't. He's prepared. His effort's there, and he's ready to go every single night.
Well, Chris, I want to ask you about Claude Giroux. The Philly fans, they're measuring him by his Stanley Cups, and I like the heck out of him. I think he's been a great player. He's up on the top of the record list team-wise. What's your take on Giroux and now and as across his career?
When Claude, it's funny. It's a great question. When Claude came into the league, and I don't think I've ever been any more fair with any player that that comes through Philadelphia. If you're good, I'll let you know. If you're not, well, maybe you're playing the wrong sport. Claude Giroux, when he came in, he was. As soon as I saw him for 10 games, I said, this guy will eventually, within a few years, be a top 5 player in the NHL, and he was for a number of years. The problem with Philadelphia playing here is if you don't take care of your business via playoff wins, you're going to be judged. That's the way it is. Ask Joel Embiid. Lost 4 straight last year. If you don't win playoff series, if you don't elevate your game in the biggest moments of the year, then you're going to feel the butt end of the fan base, and that's it. And unfortunately, he's the captain of the team. He had his first playoff win this past summer as a captain of the team. And I think when you look at a decade's of work, he's done a ton of stuff, individual achievements. He's made a lot of players better, but he's missing after his initial year when he went to the finals against Chicago, when he's really, really young. He was probably more of a third-line guy. Since he's taken over, he's not had that playoff success of going deep into the rounds that the fans here expect for a player who's put up those numbers. That's it. This is Philadelphia. If you want to play in Nashville, or you want to play in some other little, rinky-dink town, go ahead and play where the fans don't care. This is Philly. You have to win playoff series if you want to be put on a mantle with guys like Bob Clark and everyone else that had won prior to them. And now the problem with that is it's almost 55 years now, right, since they won a Stanley Cup. So that elevates the pressure on everybody.
Well, Chris, one thing I love about the Flyers is how all the alumni are, so friendly with one another. And you got to play in the Winter Classic, the outdoor game, the alumni game at the ballpark on New Year's Eve 9 years ago. And a few weeks ago, you posted this picture. And it's, of course, you and Bernie Perrant, you playing D in front of Bernie. I love this. How much fun was playing that game? And is Bernie not the coolest guy in the world?
Well, I don't have to tell anybody how cool a guy Bernie is. I mean, Bernie's the best, right? He's just unbelievable. He's another guy that just, he's Bernie's God, right? I'm not. There's only a couple of guys that are portrayed like that, and probably in the history of the franchise, it may be Bernie and Clarkie, in terms of what they've done. But that was one of the greatest days of hockey in my life. I could safely say that. I enjoyed that day. The celebration of the sport more than I think any other time I've been a Flyer. We've been some big playoff games. It wasn't quite we didn't have to quite have the stomach butterflies before that Winter Classic game. And the way it went down, the Ron Duguay shot into the pads of Bernie, the fans, the standing ovations. It was just an amazing, amazing day. I'm not sure you can recreate something like that because I think the only time it could be that special was the first time. And it was just a great, great day.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chris, before we get to our closing, because Chet likes to play a game we call Fast Five with anyone's a new guest, but I want to ask you before we get to that, you have some daughters that are some pretty good athletes that are doing some great things. Tell us a little bit about what's going on over there at the Therien house.
Yeah, thanks. Well, my kids are like all of us are my pride and joy, and all four. I met my wife here in the area. She's a local girl. My kids were all born in the area. I have three daughters: Isabella, Ava, and Alexa. And Christopher is a 14-year-old boy who is almost as big as I am. So I'm not sure yet if it's football or hockey. We'll figure that out in the next couple of years for him. But my daughters, I have two of them that play at Loyola, Maryland together in the Patriot League. And I have a third daughter who's still at Cherokee here in New Jersey that will be going to Boston University next year, which is in the same league as Loyola. So Isabella will be graduated this year. Hopefully they get a few games in. She's a terrific player. It's had some injuries the last few years. And Ava, her sister on the team, they've been doing great. I'm looking forward to hopefully high school picking up here and in hockey for my boy. But that's the best. I love. I never knew when I got here that basketball would be such an integral part of our family, and it has been. And like I say, I'm a hockey fan and a girls basketball fan. I have to say girls basketball. It's very, very important that I mention that because that's what I do. Those are my hobbies now. So the nights that I don't have to do the Flyers games on an official level, I will be able to sit back in my recliner here and watch the Loyola girls basketball and Cherokee girls basketball play hockey or basketball this year.
Awesome. Are they tall?
Excuse me?
Are they tall? The girls tall?
You know what? My third one's 6'2". My 6 foot, 5'11" and a half, and 6'2".
Nice.
That's tall.
Yeah,
that's tall.
All right.
Hey, before we get to Fast Five, I have one other thing. I know you're doing something new career-wise that you're not ready to disclose just yet, but I do know because I've seen you on Facebook. You're doing these mini reviews of local bars and restaurants. Looks like you're having a lot of fun with that, and you get to eat a lot of wings and pizza, which is not a bad thing.
You know what, guys? I'm not doing it for any kind of coupons or any free days. I'm not at all. These are restaurants that I just was thinking to myself on New Year's Eve. I'm like, there's so many places that are struggling right now. Restaurants, I talked to a good friend of mine, the owner of Ponzio's, and I'd heard his story. I'm like, you know what? It's got to be something. If I have whatever little notoriety I have, I'd like to try to at least make it public. The places that I've enjoyed over the years, places that have been good to me, my teammates, my family, and just kind of lend them some support and video. Hopefully as many people as they can hear the name of the place I'm mentioning, or certainly get the idea of going out to order takeout and support our local businesses because it's been a really brutal 10 months since last March, and that's not what I'm doing though, guys. I'm not a food critic. I will be back. I'm thinking within 2 weeks. It will be the most important announcement that I'll ever make in my life, and that's how big it is. And to me, you'll probably want to have me back on after it's done, and I'd love to come back on.
We absolutely will. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else, Bill, before Fast Five?
Let's hit the Fast Five. Let's get it going if Chris is up for
Fast Five. Oh, he's got this. I'm confident. All right, Chris. Number one, you scored 33 goals, including playoffs during your career. Which goal was most memorable?
You really got me on the spot. Most memorable goal. Well, the first one's always special.
Yep.
And So those are tough to remember. Except mine went off a shin pad into the top corner, so I'm going to try to slide that behind me. I had a playoff game winner against Buffalo one year, and I had like 60 people in the locker room waiting with cameras after. I'm like, why are you guys here? I scored. It's no big deal, right? But that might have been a pretty good one. But like I used to tell my teammates, boys are all big, every single one of them.
There you go. Number 2, you played with some legendary Flyers in the late 90s and early 2000s, of course, the Legion of Doom, Rod Brindamore, Eric Desjardins, Hexy. The big question, though, who was the craziest of all those teammates?
Probably me. No, you know what? I hate to go back in time and say who the craziest was. Ronnie Hextall on the ice was a bit of a, like, you know, he had a very, very short fuse. A calm guy off the ice. My first roommate was Dave Brown. You know, who basically was him and Bob Probert, right? And I get in the room my first night with Brownie, and I'm looking at him like, man, you better not do anything wrong in this room. That's going to take me apart. But you know what? I mean, I played with some absolutely amazing times. There's a different time, guys. I think anytime you can live your life without knowing that it probably won't be on a cell phone video. I can assure you that the 90s and the early 2000s were a much, much different time than the one these guys are living in now.
Good point. Number 3, what will you miss most about doing the pre- and post-game TV work?
The people that I work with. I mean, you know, Katie Emmer, Al Morganti, my producer, Joe Fordyce, just great people. I mean, they're not the ones that make those decisions over there. They're dynamite people I love working with every single night, including the Flyers people as well, with that side of the organization.
Number 4, I'm sure you're aware that you have played more games as a Flyers defenseman than anybody else, 753. Trivia, do you know which Flyers D-men are second and third on the list?
I know Joe Watson's second. I don't know who's third, but I remember when Joe, you know, when I passed him, I thought that was like, you know, it should be a real tribute to Joe. You know, he won 2 Stanley Cups, and, you know, here I was, I passed him by just a few games. But, you know, Joe's a legend here, and I was just happy to be on the same map with him. I don't know who third was.
Eric Desjardins.
Desjardins, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. Number 5, let's see. I know this is maybe something you've sampled. Have you ever had a Big Hazy 13?
No, I definitely have not had one of those. I absolutely guarantee I haven't had one.
Okay. Bonus question. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, it's over here. A bobblehead of another former teammate of yours, if you can see it. That is Donald Brashear. Is there a Chris Therien bobblehead out there somewhere?
I don't think so.
I've never seen one.
I don't remember having a bobblehead night. No, I don't think so.
I looked online. I couldn't find one. You really should have one. All right, that was awesome.
It seems that the guy who's the all-time leader in defensive games should have a bobblehead. No,
I agree. We got to get on that.
You know, I was one of those guys. Like I said, I played with Rico Desjardins, and we were partners for 10 years. I always, you know, he was the Batman, I was the Robin. I never looked for, you know, any spot out of the shadows. I was happy with where I was, and I didn't get a bobblehead. I still got up and went to work the next day. It's all good.
There you
go.
All right. Well, hey, Chris, we thank you for coming by, and we certainly appreciate your work as a Flyer, obviously, but also your work in the broadcasting. You know, you're certainly going to be missed, and thanks. I'm excited to hear what you got coming up here in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And we will have you back.
I'm excited. I'm nervous at the same time, but I know that there is a great road ahead of me, and a great road ahead of a lot of other people that I know are going to take to this. So.
Whenever you're ready, you're welcome to come back.
Spoken like a true player. You get knocked down, you get back up, dust off.
That's it. That's life.
All right. Chris. Thanks for joining us. Let's do it again.
You got it.
All right, Chet, let's talk insurance. If you're looking for insurance in the tri-state area, we've got the spot for you. Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA.
Oh, you know it, Bill. One of the best benefits of having an Allstate insurance policy is getting a local agent like Dave Lavoie who is dedicated to you. Building that personal relationship means you can work with someone who knows you and understands your family's needs. Someone you can call when you have questions or need help. Dave is dedicated to protecting what is most important to you and your family. Call Dave today at Allstate in Westchester, Pennsylvania. The number 610-430-0700. Once again, that number, 610-430-0700. And let's throw this guy on here right now.
Hey, everybody, it's Willie Nile here, and you're listening to Chet and Bill on Philly Pressbox Radio. You lucky people.
I like Willie. He's got good music. He really does. Appreciate you. Shout out, Willie. Hey, Chet, Sixers are hit with the COVID. Let's hit on this real quick. Seth Curry is the ringleader and tested positive, took down half the team. And I guess due to contact protocol, and I guess the league's kind of set the bar. You got enough players to put a team out there, you're playing. There ain't no cancellations.
It's unfortunate, though. They were 7-2 heading into the weekend, and all of a sudden this happens. They had to play a very good Denver team on Saturday with just 7 players able to get on the court. They were able to dress 8, but Mike Scott couldn't play. And then again, Monday night in Atlanta, and I guess now again against Miami. So they're in a tough stretch right here. They're 7-4. They may lose another couple, and that's a shame because they were playing well earlier in the year, and now this is going to hurt them. And this is a shortened schedule, too. It's only 72 games. I know the NBA did make some changes today with the protocols as far as what you can and can't do when you're on the road and all that sort of things. And if one team only has 8 or 9 players, I think the other team now is going to have to pick out 8 or 9 players that they can only play that particular game. So they're trying to make it a little more fair, but at the same time get all these games in.
Well, and they found out the rookie could score too, by the way, as he threw in 39 with a lot of court time.
Well, that's the one thing that's good about this. It's more playing time for guys like Isaiah Joe, Dakota Mathias, who can shoot threes. And yeah, especially Tyrese Maxey, who went off for 39 points the other day in the loss on Saturday. So that's good for these guys. They're getting lots of good experience, but the team really needs to get Curry back in there and these other guys. Of course, Ben Simmons out the last couple of games with knee soreness. So we're not seeing the real Sixers right now.
Yeah, well, hopefully back at full strength here shortly and not let this thing get away from them. But hey, we've mentioned several times, Chet, that over the last few months that we've got a new relationship with the Edge of Philly Sports Network, which has been a lot of fun. And I don't know how long it's actually been now, but it's been a while. But we got the man himself with us tonight in Big Al Zaffiri.
Yeah,
There he is.
There he is.
Gentlemen.
Big Al. How you doing, man?
Busy as always, but always good busy.
Well, hey, Al, tell us before we get talking about some Eagles and some other stuff. Lot going on at Edge of Philly Sports in the new year.
Absolutely.
Give the viewers a quick rundown of what all's happening over there and what you got going on.
Well, kind of like Bundy, I can't leak everything out, but there is some things that we can talk about. Of course, EoPsports.com is the best way of getting you guys, us, the entire network, which is great to say that. Some people can throw the word network around, but we're able to say, hey, we have 5 shows, articles, posts, everything you need. We're always up to date on everything Philly sports as best as possible. Yep, there's the picture of all pretty people there.
Look at that good-looking crew.
That is a crew, and that's about half the crew. Like, that's the one thing that's nice to say. Like, that there's a lot of people behind the scenes.
There's some more.
Yeah, that we get to work with. But also the big thing has been growing as well as the newsletter for everybody who goes, oh, maybe I missed Chet and Bill, or I missed something, or hey, I want to hear more about these other guys. Just an email in 5 seconds will get you signed up for the Friday newsletter. I'll have this show on there, your interview with Bundy, and everything else that we offer on there. And right now we're in talks with. Once we can, we'll be doing a little traveling, the crew, not just myself and you, but you guys and everybody else included, doing some traveling, getting out there once things, start to lighten up and we can do that. And a couple other things coming down the pike. Hopefully the app will be launching by the end of this year.
Woohoo. Hey, now
Yeah,
I do want to say, Al, for people who are not familiar with where to find everything that's going on, you guys pretty much post on a regular basis. If news breaks, you're on a post. Is that just going to Facebook or
Oh, no.
where can people find all that information?
So Facebook, like you said, is good, but you can go to Twitter at EoP Sports or EoP Sports, also EPSN 444 on Instagram as well. And like I said, the easiest way is EoPsports.com for people who are not big on the social media aspect of things. But like you said, we got a whole crew, which is nice, that allows people to jump on things. Like, of course, the big thing out there is the Doug Pederson firing. As soon as it came out, we were able to jump on it and put it out there for everybody.
Well, speaking of that, 2 weeks ago, I called for the firing of Peterson and Howie Roseman. Didn't think we were going to get either of them. We had Ray Didinger on last week. He agreed. But then out of the blue came this report Sunday that maybe Doug was on thin ice. And then we had the big announcement.
Whoop, he froze.
Nope, he froze. I know I'm not Bundy, but I thought he would froze more with Bundy. But I I think I know where he was going with this. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody's surprised with. I mean, I don't know if I won't use the term shocked, Bill, but I'll use the term surprised. There he is about the whole firing situation of Doug Pederson. Like you said, I keep going back. I'm like, you could fire Doug Pederson, you could fire entire coaching staff, you could fire Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, and everybody else down the line. But until you cut the head off the dragon, it is going to continue to be a problem. And I am nervous. I am very nervous. Usually I'm the one trying to find the optimism out of anything. But I as long as, I mean, after hearing what Jeff Lurie had to say, I don't know how anybody's optimistic about this team, because it sounds like he's hand in hand with Howie Roseman for hearing a long time coming.
Well, I think the thing that bothers me the most about two things about Lurie's conversation. One's he kept talking about a transition. A transition is another word for a rebuild, the way that conversation was going. It's not what Doug Pederson wanted. Doug Pederson wanted to win now. He's the one getting beat up every week. And apparently that's not what Jeff Lurie's vision is. And then the second thing is the fact that he sat right there and kind of thinks the sun rises and sets on the job Howie Roseman has done is troubling. I mean, it's troubling.
Well, he talks both sides of his mouth. At one point, he says that they didn't do a good job in drafting and contract personnel and all that. And the other time, he says Howie did a good job. I'm like, no, he didn't. I mean, I said it's very simple. If you wanted to throw all the mistakes that has hurt this organization onto a pile, and you made Doug do it, you made Carson do it, and you made Howie do it, Howie's pile would be twice the size of theirs put together. And the other thing is, both of those other two are fixable. I mean, you can go to Doug and say, listen, we need to work with you in picking a good personnel. You have to go kind of the old school, back to the having an offense coordinator, working with them to do the play calling. It can't be all three. You're not. He wasn't balancing himself. It seemed like he really was always. It's like, I want to be an OC, but I like being the head coach at the same time. Like he never could give either one up. And, you know, some of the reports are coming out that he kind of died on the line trying to defend some of the guys that were kind of undefendable on his, you know, on his squad there of coaches. But the ones that they got that are leaving are the ones that are the biggest problem. And that's the ones that Howie brought in. That wasn't even Doug. Like, they're blaming Doug for stuff that Howie had brought in, you know. Scangarello was not a Doug guy. I mean, these were guys that were brought in to kind of like, I think, keep him in line. And I think the major problem has been from the get, and this is even before Super Bowl and after Super Bowl, they have never fully trusted Doug Pederson. And it shows, and it continued to show. And I think Doug just finally said, I'm a Super Bowl winning coach. It's either my way or the highway, because I think he knew he could leave and land one of these other jobs.
Yeah, he will get another job, I'm sure. Yeah, Lurie said so many bizarre things yesterday. It was just crazy. I mean, he started out saying that Doug doesn't deserve to be fired, but of course he fired him. And then in defending Howie Roseman, he's going back to, 20 years, saying how we're in, 5 or 6 NFC championship games. Well, Roseman was not in power when they were in those first 5. That was the Andy Reid era, when Andy was, in charge of making all the moves. That was before Roseman got any real power. So what has Howie done lately? He's had 4 bad drafts in a row is what he's done. So I don't know if Howie's got something on Jeff Lurie or what, but
I'm saying that in a joke too. I've been saying that in a joke for years, like, oh, he's got pictures of him in a compromising situation. But part of me's like, was there any truth behind that joke? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, our boy Freddie, he sent me a message actually while you guys were on with Bundy, and it was it was a tweet that Rob Motti put out. We had him on the show last week.
Yeah.
And he said he was told by 2 people with direct knowledge that Doug Pederson stood up for Frank Reich. The management wanted to move on from Frank Reich after the first year, and then of course they come back and win the Super Bowl with Frank Reich. So like that's the other problem. Like, how are we going to get a good head coach, a good OC, a good anything when it seems like there's more turnover in the Eagles organization than any? I mean, Doug Pederson was the first coach to be fired less than 6 years after winning a Super Bowl in since 1972 or something like that. It's like early 70s. Like it's unprecedented. But that's 2020 for you now, 2021.
Well, I think if to simply put this in a simple nutshell, okay, forget the injuries because injuries happen. For me, the fact that Greg Ward, who has turned out to be a pretty decent player. Is your top receiver for 2 straight years when he was a college quarterback who was on your taxi squad for 3 years. He's now your top receiver for 2 years. Tells me you've done a crappy job.
Yeah. And then on top of it, you start to see, okay, we keep bringing some of these practice squad guys up, guys that we never gave a chance. Boston Scott, he was a guy who didn't get a chance until injuries, and then they start to see something out of him. But I mean, they continue to see this, but then they leave guys like Alshon Jeffrey on this roster, taking up a roster spot that could have been, you see a Fulgham now, like a guy who stepped up now, kind of dropped off a little bit. But so that's, that lies the problem. Was that Doug not, getting the best, squeezing the juice out of what he can get? Or, was maybe Jeff Fulgham, or was Fulgham kind of like a smokescreen at one point? Like, we don't know. And that's why the problem keeps in line. Like, a lot of people called for Doug's head throughout the season. I haven't really been the fire Doug or not fire Doug. Like, if Doug kind of has moved on, I'm okay with it. I was very surprised, and I always said if I had my choice, it had to be Howie. But I always said if you're going to fire Doug, you might as well fire Howie. Get another guy in here, get his vision in here that fits this organization, and let him build from the top down. Because the problem we have always had, we never knew who's always making which decision. Was it, because I don't know if Doug told them to put in to lose that game or if he tanked that game. I don't know if they said, so he got a call from Howie, you got to put Sudfeld in now. This is getting too close for comfort. I don't know. And we'll never know until, maybe 15, 20 years and Doug's out of this, NFL and he could write his memoirs. But, we don't know anything. But what we do know, it all keeps leading back. It hasn't gotten better. This is now a GM who's been through, will be now fourth coach. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And yet, for some reason, Jeff Lurie continues to keep going to the same well. What's the old definition of insanity?
Yeah,
that's right.
It's happening in Philly. Well, the funny thing is they won the Super Bowl 3 years ago, February 4th, and yet right now they are the most messed up franchise in the city. The Phillies are close, but now they at least got Dave Dombrowski in there, who I think is going to do a good job. I hope. He's got a lot of work to do. And the Sixers and Flyers have certainly made a lot of improvements over the last year or two with their hirings. And believe it or not, Alain Vigneault is now the longest tenured coach among the big 4 teams in Philly, and he's been there 1 full season.
Yeah, that's crazy. I saw that stat today, and that really blew my mind. I mean, we always kind of said we've been lucky to have, we've made fun of Dan Snyder and Jerry Jones, and then up until recently, the ownership of the Giants. But oh, that's great. Leave them in power because they're going to keep them down. But now it looks like Jeff Lurie, they're calling him Jeff Jones, because he's acting. It seems like he has a little bit more, I don't want to say power, but he has a little bit more say than an owner who has no background should. And that's my thing is a good ownership puts a good GM, a good head coach, and allows those people to put people around them. A good GM doesn't have to do anything, to be honest. I mean, not to say anything, but you just put guys who can recognize talent, who can help you with the numbers, who can help you do all the things that you need to do, and and take all the credit for it. Yet, Howie's got to play puppet master and pull the strings. And I think, and it was funny because I said I've been not super happy with Doug, especially over this year, and the fact that he was letting them pull his strings. And I said that it'd probably be good for all of them to go to start. I mean, at this point, if we're in a restructure, you might as well start fresh. But I said if you're going to keep Doug, it has to be all Doug, so we can blame all Doug if something doesn't go right. Because no matter what happens over the last couple of years, we still don't know who had 100%. I asked a question the other night to somebody. I said, if you went up to a guy who had to answer you 100% truthfully, and the question was, who made the call to tank that game? We'll never know. But I would love to know, because that will show you where it all leads from. But it's easy to see with a devoid team full of not zero talent, but very lacking talent, or talent that's aging that we can't even afford anymore. You have to point at the GM. Who else's fault is that?
Mm-hmm. Hey, Al, to quote Ray Didinger last week, I think I got this right, when I believe Chet asked him, how long will Howie Roseman be here? And I believe Ray's answer, Chet, correct me if I'm wrong, was as long as Jeffrey Lurie's the owner.
Yeah, that's And that's the scary part. Like I said, we used to say, oh, thank God for Eagles organization. And Howie we trust. I was one of those people. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm choking on crow. I'm not even eating it. I'm choking on it now. And it's scary because, Middleton is, getting in the middle of things that he shouldn't have, I feel. And then, like, at least the Sixers, we used to blast their organization, but at least they were smart enough to go, all right, let's clean house as best as possible. Get rid of Brett Brown because obviously we're not going to win with him. And Elton Brand is just too wet behind the ears to know what to do. So we're going to bring in two guys, Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers, and who have just the pedigree to do so, and they did it. Same thing here. Same with the Flyers. They bring in Alain Vigneault and Chuck Fletcher, guys who have the clout and the ability to do it. The Eagles and the Phillies are starting to figure that out with Dombrowski, but I mean, I kind of feel bad for him. He's coming into a mess.
Oh yeah.
Like you got an ownership who doesn't want to spend money. You got no farm system. What are you going to trade? What are you going to do? I mean, that organization, I usually don't feel bad for an individual player. I worry about my team. But Bryce Harper, I feel like we're going to waste his. I mean, he has a reason to want to get traded. If he said, I want to be traded, I wouldn't blame him right now. And at this point, it'd probably be worth it because we're not going to do anything over the next couple of years. So by the time we get to use Bryce Harper, we're looking at late 30s or mid 30s.
Getting back to the Eagles mess, I'm going to put up this graphic of some of the coaching candidates. From what I understand, the 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh is now moving up on the list from 25 to 1. Any of these names jump out at you as great candidates?
Everybody's high on Eric Bieniemy, which you can't not be because that team has been so good. But then again, you've had, take Adam Gase. Who did he work with? He worked with Peyton Manning. And he was the talk of the town, and he turned out to be a complete lunatic. I've heard the stories about him leaving his wife after she just gave birth to their child to go watch film. So I don't know. Is it Eric Bieniemy? Is he the mastermind behind it? Did he learn from Andy Reid? Did he? Is he just? Is it the luck of the draw of having one of the great quarterbacks of this current era under your to work with? God only knows. If I always said if you put any other quarterback on the Eagles team, it's not going to get much better. If anything, I mean, nobody can survive behind a fractured O-line, receivers who can't get open, and a defense who can't play. So I mean, nobody jumps out at me. I don't want a college guy. I don't want Lincoln Riley. I don't want to. I don't want to Remeyer because. I'm not saying I'm not basing it all on the Chip Kelly factor, but I mean, go back outside of Pete Carroll. And now, the guy from Temple.
Pete failed his first time too.
Yeah, but
had to go back to college to get it right the second time.
Yeah. And I mean, the guy, Matt Rule from who was at Temple at one point, and then now he's in Carolina. So far, he seems like he's doing a good job. That guy just seems to kind of put a blessing on wherever he goes. But I really don't want to go down the college coach. We need somebody who has kind of the backing to do so, who has the experience and who's willing to not be worried about the play calling and allow the OCs and other people to do their job. Yeah. But I would also like to see Deuce maybe get a shot. But I feel like he'd be kind of coming into a dumpster fire. Wouldn't be a fair shot to him.
That's right. I think with Bieniemy and maybe Kafka would be a little bit different. He's the quarterback coach out there, but for Bieniemy, he's got to be in line to take over for Andy. And Andy, how long is he going to go at this thing? Eric would be the one in line for that job, and then 10 years of Patrick Mahomes' career. Why jump into, like you say, this dumpster fire if you're Eric Bieniemy? To me, I just don't see that even being a possibility if I'm him anyway.
Well, I mean, I guess it really is like, where does Andy Reid see? I mean, because Andy Reid, I can go another 5 years with Patrick Mahomes. So the question is, does Eric Bieniemy want to wait 5 years to be a head coach somewhere? And that would be the ultimate goal. I mean, it's really hard to stay somewhere as an OC when you have a lot of people wanting to be their head coach and not want to move on. Like people
a lot of money involved.
Yeah, and it's that's what you're working for. You're working to make your way to be a head coach, even if you're the equipment manager on a team. That's the ultimate goal in the long run. So it's like when Joe Douglas went to the Jets, and some people were like, maybe he won't go because the Jets are just a terrible organization. How many people took a Cleveland job because they wanted a chance to be a head coach? So I just said, as long as I don't see Jim Schwartz pop out of the blue now and become AC, I don't want his rerun here. But Joe Brady is one I've kind of been. I wouldn't mind seeing. Dabble is another name I like to see. But the question is, he really hasn't worked with anybody that I feel. He's only been there for about a year, so I don't know what's going on. If he would be the guy behind the the magic behind it, or if he just kind of stepped into a good spot.
Al, this weekend we got Rams, Packers, Ravens, Bills, Browns, Chiefs, Bucks, Saints. I'm looking forward to these games. You see any upsets, or the home team going to win all of them? Bucks, Saints is the one I think Tampa, could win that one, but we'll see.
I that's the one I'm going with. I'm not really sold on the Saints. They still have a lot of injuries. I don't want to say they had a bye, but they didn't have a really tough opponent in front of them coming into it. Right. So I really can't. I think Bucks Saints is the big one. If you're going to say the home, away team's going to win it, has a higher chance of winning it.
All right. Hey, Al, before we let you go, can you give a quick rundown real fast of where people can find what's going on over at EOP?
Of course. Facebook, Edge of Philly Sports and Edge of Philly Sports Network. Twitter at EOP Sports. Instagram at EPSN_444. EOP Sports or edgeofphilly.com, whatever is easiest for anybody to remember. You can go there. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can find everybody's podcast, everybody's live shows. You can watch the show. The show is live streaming right now on this site. So if you're not a big social media person, you're like, I want to go there. We're on YouTube. And like I said, there's some things coming down because we're all going to be meeting real soon that we need to get involved with. Just trying to wait to get through this COVID cloud, as I call it. Get through it once everybody starts getting their vaccines and, that curve starts turning down. And I'm not just talking in the area. We're going to get some traveling under our feet.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks,
All right, Al. Thanks for coming by.
Gentlemen, thank you. As always, great show. And I'll see you guys next time. And next time, tell Bundy I'll open up for him.
Okay, you got it.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
All right. Hey, Chet, I want to hit on this real quick. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but the national championship game between Ohio State and Alabama, they didn't disappoint. 52-24, Alabama winning the title. What an offensive game that was by the Crimson Tide and the Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith.
Oh, man, you got that right. It was fun to watch. It's a shame Smith didn't get to play the second half because of the injury, because he was impressive. What do you have, 12 catches on 13 targets in the first half, 3 touchdowns. He could have gone for, 400 yards and maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns. But, yeah, as you said, he may well be gone by pick number 6 when the Eagles come up in the draft.
Yeah, I don't see the Eagles getting a shot at him. Man, what unbelievable. I mean, it's the greatest half of college football for a wide receiver I've ever seen. And I think many across the NFL players were saying the same thing. I mean, he was on, they wouldn't have stopped him in the second half either. I mean, it was just unbelievable what the kid was doing.
And Mac Jones looked pretty good too, as the Bama quarterback. And regardless of what you think of him, you got to give Nick Saban his just due. 6 championships now with Bama, 7 overall. The guy's a winner.
Yeah, well, and the one thing about Nick, he said this a long time ago, several years ago. He said, I may not be the best coach there is, but I'm the best recruiter there is. And he ain't lying, because he's got a stable full of players, and guys leave and more guys come in. I mean, he's just loaded. And they do a great job.
As we said, Rachel Bachman told our show last week, winning begets winning, and that helps recruiting, and that's why Bama's always in the top 4 every year, it seems, anymore, with Nick Saban there. Yeah,
well, Devontae Smith will be somebody certainly to watch on draft day. If the Eagles are lucky enough for him to be there at 6, my goodness, I hope they take him.
Bill, you know what that means? It's time for another edition of Random Chet.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
Random Chet. Yeah. And although, some folks think I should have gone with Chet Happens or Piece of Chet, we decided on Random Chet, which is just fine. That's a whole nother issue. Anyway, Bill, last Thursday, I don't know if you know this, it was National Bobblehead Day. And somebody asked me if I had any personal favorite bobbleheads in my vast collection. So after giving it a lot of thought, and by a lot of thought, I mean 15 or 20 seconds, I chose 6 or 7 to show off. One of them, because I went to Penn State, is the Penn State Nittany Lion coming out of Beaver Stadium. You are holding in your hands, Bill, Harry and Whitey on my list as well. How about this one, Bill? Let's see. It's an old Kyle Korver bobblehead. And this is different because it's Kyle Korver with some kind of real hair. And this guy who's like 40-something now is still playing in the NBA. At least he was as of last year. I assume he's still somewhere. Kyle Korver. How about another hairy guy, Bill? I listen to 93.3 WMMR. How about a Pierre Robert bobblehead? Peace and love, baby. Also, we have, I love this one because it's a Philly. He's one of my favorite Phillies, Jimmy Rollins. And he's got those cool shades, the killer sunglasses that he always wore on the field. So you got to like that one. And of course, the great Mike Schmidt. Why the great Mike Schmidt? Because he's Mike Schmidt, the greatest third baseman in the history of baseball. And that one actually looks kind of like him too. So that's pretty good. A real personal favorite, the one you just showed off, is also, as I said, on my list, Harry and Whitey, the 2 greatest Phillies announcers as far as a tandem ever. Gotta love those guys. And Bill, this one, simply because this is a true old school bobble from the 1960s. I was given this one as a very young kid, and it's been with me pretty much my entire life. As I said, it's old school Eagles with the Kelly green, and it's not in the best of shape. The head pops off, which is just a shame. But I don't know where I got this, but I've had it since I was literally 5 or 6 years old, and it's still with me all these years later. So there you go.
Very valuable, that last one.
It may well be. Now, as a follow-up, let me just say this. The person who asked me about my favorite bobbleheads happens to have a birthday today, and that is this lady right here, Dancing Jane. So happy birthday, Jane. Jane has become a real devoted listener, which reminds me that thank you, Jane. It reminds me also that I forgot to acknowledge another recent birthday. And I always feel badly for people who have a birthday right around Christmas because they kind of get cheated. And that's the case with this lady, our pal Robbie. She is a Christmas Eve baby and a longtime listener. And I meant to say happy birthday to her on our December 23rd show. And because of all the holiday excitement, I forgot. So 3 weeks late, happy birthday to Robbie as well.
And to Jane. Hey, and just to let everyone know, Chet, that we don't actually rehearse this stuff. I didn't know about your bobbleheads, and I only have my one because I just couldn't find the box. I've been packing. I packed them all today, and this is the only one that's sitting out because I couldn't find the box. But one that's missing from your list that I really like, Chet, maybe my second favorite, the Brad Lidge.
I looked at that one and I thought about bringing that one in, but I limited it to, 7 or whatever. But yeah, I have so many. I really have over 50 bobbleheads. So I picked out a few of my favorites. But yeah, the Brad Lidge, I got a Ryan Howard, I got lefty Steve Carlton, I got Larry Boa in the powder blue. So love those bobbleheads.
I'll tell you at a later date about that Larry Boa. Make a note of that. I'll tell you about Larry Boa bobblehead night. Make a note.
Okay. Hey, one thing we didn't have time to mention so far, but we should mention the fact that we lost this guy, Tommy Lasorda, last week, the legendary Dodgers skipper who left us at the age of 93. He was, a great guy, occasionally an irascible guy, but certainly a great one for the game of baseball.
Absolutely. All right. Hey, Chet, great guest tonight with Chris Therien and Zaffiri. They were awesome. Who's coming to Philly Pressbox Radio next week?
I realized this afternoon that I forgot to book someone for next week, but I reached out to someone because I knew that we had to talk more about the whole Eagles mess, and maybe we'll have a new head coach by next week. So who better to discuss that whole situation and those dysfunctional Eagles than the guy who runs Bleeding Green Nation, our buddy Brandon Lee Gouton will be joining us next Wednesday. We go back to our regular Wednesday night next week, the 20th.
Yeah, I got a feeling Brandon's going to be a little fired up. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
He'll know the inside scoop too. We're hearing bits and pieces like we were talking about with this coaching staff and all that, but Brandon will know the scoop, and I got a feeling he will have a strong opinion about it, one way or the other. I'm not sure which.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I don't have a parting shot tonight, but I did jot a couple of things down also that we didn't get to mention. Also, the Flyers will, in fact, have ads on their helmets, as we discussed the possibility last week. And no, it's not Wawa, as Sam Carchidi, I guess, pointed out in the paper today. It's not Tasty Cake. It's Tata Consulting Services, TCS. I don't know who they are, but when you watch the Flyers tomorrow night, you're going to see a TCS on each side of the helmet. Hey, it's 2021, and they're trying to make up a little revenue from what they lost last year. So there you go. And
I'm guessing it's better to see TCS than see Tatas on their helmet.
Well, I don't know.
I'll just
a couple other things. Television, I'm a big television guy, and 3 legendary shows premiered on this date over the years. 1966, Batman premiered 55 years ago, Bill. 50 years ago tonight, Archie Bunker and All in the Family landed on CBS. Still funny, they probably could not put that show on today, given the way things are with the political correctness. No. And then 40 years ago tonight, I'm sure you were a regular watcher of Dynasty.
I did actually watch that.
I watched it occasionally because, Linda Evans was kind of nice looking, and Joan Collins. So, 40 years ago. Some great TV shows. And there you go.
There you go. Good TV show tomorrow, 5:30, Chet. Flyers, Penguins. Going to drop the puck for game 1 of 56. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a fun season. And I got to say, Chet, man, I enjoyed having Bundy on. He was really good.
He was awesome. And heck, he volunteered to come back in a few weeks. So I'm going to take him up on that.
Absolutely. Make a note. All right. Anything else before we wrap it up?
Nope. I'm going to preserve my Eagles bobblehead. That's 50 some years old, 60 years old. And I'm going to go home and eat. And that's it. I got nothing else. Let's wrap it up, Bill.
Let's thank tonight's special guest, Chris Therien and Al Zaffiri. Our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Bob Sullivan's LikeYourAge.com, PPCC 118 Raz Room, and Dave Lavoie of Allstate Insurance in Westchester. For Jim Chet Chesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll join Philly Press Box Radio back to Wednesday, January 20th at 7 p.m. You can see us live on Facebook or listen to our website, phillypressboxradio.com, on blogtalkradio.com/phillypressboxradio, or on Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts and others. So with that, high hopes, Philadelphia sports fans, and let's go Flyers.
Happy trails till we meet again.